ruthless, skillful, and he invented some ingenious cons that made him fortunes. Now, he died in 1974, but I've got the next best thing.
So I'm on my way to meet Tommy Thomas. He's the son of Titanic Thompson.
I've heard he's definitely a chip off the old block.
I'm actually quite nervous. And this is the closest I'm going to come to meeting Titanic Thompson. And Tommy Thomas himself's got a fascinating story. And that's him now.
Now, Tommy used to be a card cheat, but has since become a God-fearing preacher. I want to know what it was like living the life of a professional hustler.
You have an extraordinary story. I mean, your father was a famous gambler, proposition man. You didn't really meet him in your childhood, and yet somehow you ended up following a similar path.
Well, I was always practicing with magic and all. At 13 and 14 years old, I got all these books. And when I was 16 or 17, I'd go to the Elks Clubs, and I could do a few things with a deck of cards. I'd win $300 or $400 a night. Well, back in 1962 or 3, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I had a stepfather said, why don't you go get a job? Well, I went to apply for a job making salads at a hotel. I got $1.50 an hour. I said, well, that doesn't work when I go out and win 300. So I was determined to continue and be a gambler. I practice 8-10 hours a day, and I've got mirrors set up around the table. And if I'm holding out a card, I'd make sure it didn't show anywhere.
Holding out a card is when you're hiding a card. So let's say you took out an ace, and if another ace comes out, you want to slip in that ace you've been hiding in to give yourself a pair of aces.
That's exactly right. That's right.
Of course, when you slip that ace back in, you need to make sure it matches the rest of the deck.
Now, I heard a story at some point where you had a blue deck and a red deck.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? Because
sure
that
can.
sounds like a hairy moment to me.
It was. You have a table full of people playing poker. One person shuffling the red deck while you're dealing the blue, and that speeds up the process. My partner held out a red card, and I held out a blue one. So when they deal the blue cards, I'm the one that would switch in and out. When they dealt the red, he would do that.
Right.
My partner came in with a red card when they dealt the blue ones. I guess maybe he got a little tired and he just came in, and they said, what's that red card doing in that blue deck? I said, well, you know, these cards are getting a little sticky. Maybe they just stuck together and then they got mixed up like that. So let's get a couple of new decks. What do you say?
Cheating at cards back then wasn't for the faint-hearted.
Because we're in Texas, a lot of people carry guns here.
Mississippi, Alabama, all those places I
places.
played, they all do that. Well, I had a second skill.
Right.
I had a spring holster hung upside down under a vest. So I'd be sitting there.
That's quick.
In less than a second, I'd shoot you.
That's
so
quick.
I always had that as a backup, but you know what's amazing? I never had to do that. And I always knew when you went out to get your pistol and come back. I could always tell.
How could you tell?
You could tell that little
tell?
sweat broke out, and the guy's thinking, what can I do to get my money back? And you can just see a change in a person. And he'd come back and sit down, and I'd look at that person, and I said, you know what? It's one thing to lose your money. It's another thing to lose your life.
I can
If
see
I'm
the
good enough to
stare
cheat
now.
you out of
That's
your
good.
money,
Yeah.
I'm good enough to kill you. And it never happened. It never happened.
Good God for
In
that.
32 years.
What an extraordinary man. That moment when Tommy looked at me and he said, it's one thing to lose your money, it's another thing to lose your life. That really caught me off guard because he's not bullshitting. He's been there. He sat there with a gun and cheated people out of their money. That just blows my mind.